Hi, Paul Sackett, Good News Planet. I'm speaking to Martha Shelley. Hi, Martha. How are you?
All right. How are you?
Okay, good. You're the author of The Throne in the Heart of the Sea. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you've been a writer since you were a little kid?
Actually, I have, since I was in fourth grade, I think.
Uh-huh. What interested you
I mean, of course, I wrote silly things in fourth grade, but...
And what would then continue on your, we call it a passion?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
What is it that you like about it?
It's really hard to say what a person likes about it. It's like, what do you like about chocolate, or what do you like about mango mousse cake? All I know is that I am totally happy when I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. And if I don't get to do it, I am not a happy camper.
Oh, all right. So that's a nice thing, and to know that about yourself is also a nice thing. Mm-hmm. The Throne in the Heart of the Sea, what is that all about? It's
about Jezebel and Elijah. It's a biblical novel, historical novel. You can take a look at it from either side of the point. Either side. If you're into really reading history, historical novels, it's a really good read. And if you're into biblical stuff, it's going to challenge you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's start with the biblical side. What's the story, according to, I'm not sure who?
According to the Bible, Jezebel was the princess of Tyre, the daughter of the king of Tyre, that was the capital, so to speak, of the Phoenician Empire. She married the king of Israel, and she brought with her her own religion, which was a polytheistic one, and brought it into Israel. And the king of Israel, Ahab, accommodated her and allowed her to establish her own religion. And this did not sit well with the priests of the Hebrew God. Actually, it didn't sit well, probably didn't sit terribly well at the time with the priests, because they were, the priests of Jezebel's religion were kind of cutting into their income. It was only really later on, 300 years after Jezebel's death, that it became even more of an issue when the priests of the Hebrew religion started to push out any elements of polytheism and made Jezebel into the wickedest woman of all time.
Interesting. So, I mean, it sounds like the king was kind of a woman's liberator. He allowed her to follow his own. Wasn't all this time, many of these years, quite chauvinistic?
Well, of course. I mean, the guy had more wives, like any other Oriental king at the time. He was a polygamous, but he loved her, and he let her influence him. Mm-hmm. And she was a pretty strong woman. In fact, her grandniece was Dido, known in the Middle East as Elisa, who founded Carthage. So she came from a line of strong women and wasn't easily pushed around.
What's Carthage? I don't know what that is.
Carthage, the city of Carthage, which is now in Libya. She fought for the throne and lost. She wanted to be ruler of Tyre, and so she and her party went to North Africa and founded the city of Carthage.
Who wrote this all down? Who made the Bible?
A lot of different people at different times.
Okay.
The earliest part, as far as anybody knows, was the Song of Deborah. Mm-hmm. The different psalms were written by different people, possibly by women poets as well, court poets. Different prophets wrote different parts, whatever they had to say, and then some of it nobody knows. It's oral tradition, and it wasn't even written down. It was memorized and passed from one person to another. There were specialists whose job was to memorize these stories and tell them. And then only later on, when there was a persecution and some of these specialists had their heads cut off, that people thought instead of storing them in a few individual guys, they would write it down and make as many copies as possible so that everybody could have it and the traditions wouldn't be lost.
Is there history that women ever wrote parts of the Bible?
it's not written that women did, but it seems very likely, again, for some of the Psalms, and also particularly for the book of Ruth, which is written about the stories of, it's a story of two women, and Ruth making a sacrifice to save her mother-in-law and herself. It was written from the point of view of women who could not inherit. Men could only men could inherit the land.
Mm-hmm.
Women could, and under some circumstances. But in this case, both Ruth and Naomi lost their husbands and lost their sons. So they were widows without male heirs, and they didn't have land. They were impoverished.
Mm-hmm.
In order to save her mother-in-law, Ruth and herself, Ruth married a man she didn't love, Boaz, and she's honored for that sacrifice. But it would only be women who would be concerned about that sort of thing. Men would just take it for granted that they would inherit and that they were supposed to be nice to widows and orphans. But I don't think they would have considered writing a story about that.
What interests you so much in this time in the Bible and this period, or the Bible overall in general, the stories of the Bible?
Well, the Bible in general, it's the history of my people in part. It's a whole bunch of legends, and it's a bunch of ethics about how people should be treated. And of course, you can interpret that in different ways. I mean, some people have interpreted the Bible as justification for slavery, and other people have interpreted it as justification for rebelling against oppression.
Mm-hmm.
But
isn't most of the stories from like one area in the world, physical area?
Yes, but that doesn't matter. I mean, you can take a look at stories from other areas of the world and other religions, and some of the morals that you get are pretty much the same. Do unto others.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty universal. Thou shalt not kill.
That's good news. We like that.
You can take that anywhere. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. I think that's pretty universal. People have a very strong sense of that no matter where they are.
When I went to a seminary myself, I'm an interfaith minister, we read a book, and it was called The 10 Commitments.
Uh-huh.
To make a commitment that you're going to be this way.
Right.
Is a healthy consideration, I believe. How about you? What are you going to write next?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
What are you going to write next?
I'm writing a sequel. I'm already into it. I've got a first draft, and I'm working on the second draft. The book that I wrote, the one that is available now, is, again, about Jezebel and about Elijah and the development of these people as human beings. In the Bible, you get Jezebel as the archetypal wicked woman with no understanding of her as a human being and how a person might develop into being a queen from, a little spoiled princess.
Mm-hmm.
And with Elijah, he just appears as a complete full-blown prophet, and everything he does is right and according to the will of God. But you don't get the sense of a human being, which you might get, say, with Jonah, somebody who is called to prophecy and has a human side and commits crimes perhaps as a kid, and then grows up and develops a moral sense and a sense of justice. My Elijah starts off as this angry young man who's angry at the world, angry at injustice against him, and it's all about him. And then in the sequel that I'm working on, he starts to develop as a human being who sees it's not all about him, it's all about injustice in the world.
So we're going to learn some things here in the book.
Oh, yeah. And I did a whole lot of research about the ancient Middle East. It's not just based on the Bible. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know about how they prepared perfume and how they prepared their clothing, how they prepared olive oil, what kind of goods they traded. So I wanted a really solid understanding so that I had a picture that was a living, breathing world, not just some made-up cardboard thing. And and because I'm challenging the traditional view of Jezebel, I wanted to be sure that I was as accurate as I could be, that somebody who knew the Bible or knew archaeology really and knew the ancient Middle East wouldn't look at it and say, this is baloney.
There you go. Last question. Then what's good news for you?
What's good news for me now is the uprising in Egypt. The people are overthrowing their own pharaoh, so to speak. We, as a Jew, we've had this legend for many millennia about how we escaped from slavery, escaped from the domination of Pharaoh. And now what we're seeing is the people of Egypt overthrowing the Pharaoh and finding liberation on their own soil. I love it. I'm totally thrilled by it.
Okay. All right, great. Well, and your website is? EbisuPublications.com, EBISU Publications.com. You can order the book there. You can also get it through Amazon, or you can ask your bookseller to order it. Okay. Martha, thank you very much for sharing good news with us.
Thank you, Paul.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.